I'm Justin Boyd.
And I'm Brittany Pacheco, and we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss Season 2, Episode 3 of The Last of Us. Episode titled The Path. And Brittany, let's get right to it. By the way, this is your birthday. So happy birthday to Brittany. Everybody in the chat, say happy birthday to Brittany. It's her birthday today. So
just in case I didn't know. It's my
birthday. Breaking news. I revealed to you it's your birthday. Why don't we let the birthday girl start off? What did you think about this episode overall?
Well, thank you for the birthday shout out. I appreciate it, as well as your gift from earlier. It's currently sitting on my shelf along with my Harry Potter stuff. It's a really cool Slytherin house goblet. I've had my eye on it for a few years, and Justin got it for me. So that's cool. Sidebar from that. So the episode of The Last of Us, I'm still devastated, of course, that Joel is no longer with us. Yeah. I was kind of hoping maybe there would be some sort of flashback, but I knew that was not going to happen early on, because when the intro or the opening credits rolled, usually you'll see Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey's names pop up simultaneously. That did not happen. And I was crushed, of course, because it's just a reminder now that Pedro is no longer with us on the show. So that being said, I was bummed out. I said it last week to Tristan. I'm still going to stand by it for the time being, that I'm not entirely looking forward to the show really focusing on Ellie and her whininess and her brattiness and just her like that. I'm hoping that she's going to grow up, and I'm hoping that she's going to actually listen to others instead of just thinking that she knows everything. And I think we may have gotten a little glimpse of that with Dina. Now, Dina obviously means a lot to Ellie, and they got some help from a surprising character in this episode. We'll talk about that momentarily. Overall, we have to pivot away from the Joel Ellie storyline to focus on Ellie, Dina, and their journey to Seattle to try and take down Abby and WLF, which I'm going to just call it like Wolf, just to kind of make things simple. And we also see another faction of people surviving in this post-apocalyptic world, which I'm a little fascinated with. I don't know if it's going to be explored upon further, but that was kind of an interesting little tidbit that we got to see, and just what Wolf, I'm assuming is Wolf, is capable of. So overall, interesting story progression. They got to Seattle pretty quick. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how many days that would be on horseback from Wyoming to Washington State. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was not surprised at all that Wolf would have taken place inside the Space Needle, which I've been in. Kind of trippy. But yeah, interesting. I'm definitely interested in the next episode for next week, because we did get a preview of that too. So overall, I think a good story progression. Storytelling is always solid. I'm still sad that there's no Pedro. So sad.
I understand. There's also no Tristan for this episode. I want to mention that he is our Last of Us expert, because he's played the games and everything, and he loves the show. Unfortunately, he's under the weather today, and so hopefully he'll be able to join us for next week's episode. But
he's infected, okay? Like, he's a cordyceps, like he's infected. He's gonna become a clicker. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully, hopefully Tristan will be well enough to join us next week. So shout out to Trisha in today's live chat. Appreciate you being here. She said she really enjoyed this week's episode. The storytelling pace was good. I agree.
That is unbelievable, that comment by Trisha, because I was going to say basically the same thing. I was talking about the pacing about the show. I think the show is so well made and so well paced out and planned out that, coming off of last week's episode, obviously the audience is in mourning, losing Joel. The characters are in mourning. The town of Jackson Hole is obviously in mourning for not only losing Joel, but for the infected attack that they suffered in episode 2. And so, the show, I think it's just a great show to watch. I mean, if you have a critical eye, which usually I do with a lot of stuff, but it's hard to find something to complain about with the show. Honestly, I mean, and Brittany, you kind of mentioned it. Yeah, them going on horseback from Wyoming to Seattle, that's probably, I don't know, few days, several days, 10 days. I'm not sure, but like,
I would think north of 10 days,
yeah, probably so.
especially with the amount of weather that they
Right.
endured, right? With seemingly that first night.
Right.
But I mean, obviously we've got to get people places pretty quick in order to keep people's interest and
Yeah.
whatnot. But yeah, I was like, this, like, how many days would that take on horseback from Wyoming to
Yeah.
Washington State?
I'm sure in the game, and I have not played the games, but I'm sure in the game, that journey, there's probably things along the way, like
Oh
side
yeah,
missions, things you have to take care of.
side quests are so much
Side
fun.
side quests, yeah. So, but again, that's the smallest thing I could possibly think of is like
Yeah,
to criticize the show. It's really, really, really well done, and yeah, just enjoy watching it. Um, let's jump right into the episode. Like you said, Brittany, we learn about, or we see that. I mean, the episode opens with we see Tommy, who is obviously he is with his
Joel's
brother's
brother.
body. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's with Joel, and he is kind of cleaning him up. Obviously, this is after what happened in episode 2, and then we see Ellie. She's in the hospital. She wakes up and starts screaming because she can see the vision of Abby killing Joel playing in her head.
Mhm.
And then quickly we go from that moment to 3 months later. So another time jump in this show.
Seriously.
Yeah. So the show's moving around. What'd you think about how it started, about how, it opened? Like, I wasn't sure if it was gonna, like, just we're gonna deal with the immediate aftermath, but which they kinda gave us a little bit of both, but they really, and that was very short-lived. They went from the immediate aftermath to 3 months later showing the town, rebuilding, trying to refortify itself after what happened with the infected.
I think that was a good call in order to fast pace through what would be a very depressing and bleak time for the town of Jackson. And for Ellie, you don't want to necessarily see that and experience the loss and grief along with her. So I think it was a wise move on the showrunner's part to progress, that period of time. And we did get the understanding from, I believe, Dina and maybe one other person basically saying that for the following weeks after the attack, it was just nothing but funerals. And
Yeah.
let's be real, I don't want to see that. I don't think anybody else really wants to see that, in depth. So, and then also getting the understanding that for Ellie, she's been in the hospital
Mhm.
for the last 3 months because she obviously endured both physical pain as well as emotional and mental pain
Yeah.
and needed to be cleared by all personnel before she could go home, which I could only imagine she was just dreading going home because of how things were between her and Joel, and then that final moment that she witnessed. And I thought it was interesting too, uh, her conversation with Goal. I don't know why I just changed her name.
Gail. Yeah.
Gail. Goal, not Gollum. With Gail, and I'm glad we're still getting Catherine O'Hara in the show. The conversation about, you, when it's your last moment with someone, you really just don't think about it. You really don't think it's going to be your last minute with someone. And then it's natural for the human to think in retrospect and, oh, I shouldn't have done this. I should have spoken with him. I should have cleared the air. You know what I'm saying? But then Ellie, being the smartass that she is, spins it back on Gail. She's like, but you know what? That's a me problem. Like I gotta, let that go. I gotta, she knows how to work the system. So I can kind of appreciate that. But Gail obviously sees right through Ellie's bullshit.
Yeah.
But what more can she do? She said all the right things and she was therefore released from the hospital to go home. But I love the shot of Ellie walking through the hallway, right? Initially with just a lot of commotion, people at the nurse's desk and what have you. And she kind of has like this little smile on her face or little whatever grin. And then as she keeps walking further and further away, the more alone she is, you start seeing that grin just disappear. And like she's hardening herself for the reality that she's about to face.
Yeah. Let's go to Trisha in the comments. in the chat. She says, "Do we think that Ellie will have these visions of Joel?" And I think that, before this episode, I was kind of talking to people at work about the show, and I said, I thought that Pedro Pascal's Joel would appear like in 3 more episodes because at the time there were 5 episodes left. After seeing this episode, I think we're only going to get 1 more like Joel appearance, maybe
I
whenever they
don't
tell the
see how you can make that prediction, but go ahead.
when they tell the Eugene story, like the flashback Eugene story,
Mm,
they've got to have Joel in that because Joel killed Eugene apparently. So, but as far as like visions of what we've already seen, I think that we probably will see more of that. I don't know if we're going to see like visions that are new scenes that Pedro Pascal shot with Bella. Maybe I hope
mhm,
so. I mean, I hope we get a
right.
lot more flashbacks, but I just think that like the way the show is moving, I don't
Mhm.
like you can't have more than a couple of Joel episodes since the character's dead. I think it'll be too confusing for everyone. So
Yet they're gonna do it with Avengers Doomsday, Justin. So I mean,
how so?
Robert Downey Jr.
He's playing a different character though.
He's the same person.
It's the mo well,
It's
he's
the
the same.
same actor.
Yes, he's the same
We're not
actor,
gonna
but it's
digress.
you're
We're
the
not gonna
one who
digress.
you're the
I
one who got
know.
us off track here. Yeah.
I know. Sorry. My bad. My bad.
Yeah.
Back on track.
Yeah.
Trisha also says that I love that Ellie tells her, meaning Gail, that our last moment with someone doesn't define our perception of them or whatever she said, which is
Well,
pretty close to
yeah.
the quote.
Yeah, Ellie's like, your final moment, someone does not define your whole time with them. But then
Mhm.
Gail says, well, yeah, but a lot of times it actually does. I'm not sure I agree with that. That's kind of your own personal experience, I guess. But
It's definitely to each their own because I know from my own experience with loss, like with my brother-in-law, even though he had brain cancer, we knew at some point he was going to pass. It still didn't make things any easier, of course, but
yeah,
then remembering the last time I saw him or interacted with him or spoke to him, I start thinking back like I wish I would have said something more or done something more, or what have you. It's I think it's very personal for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
But it's kind of hard to not have those thoughts and think, you know, I should have done better.
yeah. And sticking with the Gail Ellie scene, Gail mentions like, hey, the last time that I spoke with Joel, he said he wronged you. And you can to me, it wasn't clear, like, does Ellie know what that's about exactly? Or she's like, she has an idea. I don't think she knows exactly, but she's trying to work Gail for information, which I'm not sure Gail as a therapist should be telling her this stuff. I mean, obviously it's in a,
I don't think patient confidentiality really matters at this
maybe it
point when the
doesn't
patient's
apply.
dead.
Well, maybe it doesn't even apply like in a post-apocalyptic, the zombie apocalypse
Exactly.
has happened,
I
but
mean, she's
um
high and drunk all the time. I mean,
yeah.
really?
Yeah. What'd you think about that interaction and how, Ellie's kind of working Gail for information, but it also seems like Ellie has an idea of what, Joel was troubled about.
I honestly wish I had done a rewatch of season 1 prior to the premiere of season 2 because the way that the finale for season 1 ended was Joel and Ellie, and I think Ellie was kind of trying to pump Joel for information about the fireflies, and
Yeah.
and she asked the question, is it true about the fireflies and whatever it was that he was telling her that they were doing with her? Because she was willing to sacrifice herself for the greater good, if you will, to try and come up with like an antidote or some sort of something to help people against these infected. And for Joel, that just didn't set well. So he, I believe, made up some sort of lie to justify why she is still alive.
Yeah. He said raiders attacked the hospital. That's why he had to kill everybody and get out of there.
Yeah, and so I think I don't know if I don't remember if she overheard him saying something or what the case was, but in that moment when she's thinking about a reply to Joel and says,
Mhm.
okay, walks away, I think she knew in that moment that he was lying
Yeah.
about what actually happened. And oh yeah, Trisha here. I think that Ellie knows and that her and Joel had a conversation we haven't seen yet, and she knows, and that's what causes the rift between them. We just haven't seen that play out yet on screen. See, I think that's part of it too, but I feel like it's still that conversation from the end of season 1
Right.
where she has an inkling that he's lying, and I just can't remember if it's based on something that she overheard him say specifically or not. But I, yeah, not being able to reconcile with that is
Mhm.
probably going to eat away at her for a period of time.
Yeah.
Especially, I think when she comes face to face with Abby and Wolf, and all those feelings are gonna, and it's just gonna come back up.
Yeah, and that's a great thought by Trisha because I think that what she says in her comment, I believe that will also work into that Eugene flashback episode because we know Eugene was a Firefly. We've heard that from Jesse. Um, I assume that all these characters kind of knew each other a little bit. I assume that Ellie had a knew Eugene a little bit also. So I think we're gonna get all of that backstory in that Eugene episode, which is probably not next week, I don't think, because we saw the look ahead for next week. Next week looks like bonkers, crazy action in Seattle, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But maybe the following week, because now we've got 4 episodes left to go, or maybe it's the penultimate. I doubt it's the
Ooh,
finale. Maybe it's who knows? But I do think that will be a main episode. It may just be called Eugene. That's just my guess for
hmm,
the title of the episode. But anyway, moving on through this episode, Brittany, we after Ellie leaves the hospital, which by the way, her last checkpoint to get cleared was to meet with Gail. She meets with Gail. She's free to go. She goes home, goes back to where her and Joel lived, and we see like at the home, outside of the home, you have their fence line is like just littered with notes and flowers, condolences, stuff like that.
it's a
And then she
memorial,
goes,
basically.
yeah, they've made a memorial to his home. And then she goes inside, she's walking around, kinda reminiscing. She finds this box on the bed. It has Joel's watch, but more importantly to her, it has Joel's gun, which we find out later that she's gonna use that to kill Abby with, which, apropos if that
Very.
is the case. Um, and then we see her she sees Joel's, jacket or his shirt, and then she kinda, like, embraces it, cries into it. What'd you think about her visiting the home for the first time in 3 months after getting out of the hospital?
Couldn't imagine what that would look like for someone in her situation, given the estrangement she had with Joel, her last encounter with him, and the fact that we see her going into what I'm assuming is her old room. The mattress is missing off the bed, and I believe that's the mattress that's in her garage room, if you will. And walking to Joel's room and just seeing how lived in it still appears to be, right? He was working on some woodwork, and she's just kind of going through the motions, right? But yeah, as soon as she sees his clothing, because that's obviously something very personal. We wear clothes, and then it carries our scent. It you know it
Yeah,
does something to you. Oh God, I'm going to start crying. um, in that moment, I felt her pain,
yeah.
right? And I think Bella Ramsey just does an exceptional job of trying to be a badass and so hardened, but there's something that's going to break her. And
Mhm.
her embracing the sleeve of the clothing and just crying into it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've done the very same thing. And so
Mhm.
that's why I'm really fighting back tears, y'all.
Yeah.
It's the finality of it all. And that's what just is so incredibly heartbreaking and devastating, because that's all you have left. I was actually kind of hoping she would like take the jacket off or whatever it was and put it on as kind of
Yeah.
like the symbolic way of carrying him with her, aside from the gun,
Right.
obviously, because you will see throughout this episode like little habits that Joel had that she's now embodying. And I thought that was also going to be like another way of representation. But yeah, I definitely felt some type of way, and so did Trisha. She says, "Oh, I felt that scene. I lost my mom a while back, and I remember smelling her clothes. Oh God, I'm going to start crying. That still smelled like her. How much hurt that brings up, heartbreaking. Oh my gosh. Mm, mm.
Yeah, condolences to you, Trisha. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, very powerful scene. They do a good job in this show with playing with your emotions, and that's also part of the pacing of the story. Like, this isn't like an all all gas no brakes kind of action show. It's you build up these characters, build up these moments, and this was like I said, this the first 30 minutes of this episode really is kind of a tribute to Joel's character and the people they lost in the town. So
Yeah.
very very well made scene.
Oh yeah.
And it's
Great
it's a home.
performance.
It's a home where we, as the audience, we haven't seen much of that home because
No.
they've only lived there for 5 years, and we only saw we never really saw them in that home, like,
Well, we
two
never
or
saw
three
the
scenes.
inside.
Exactly. We saw the garage because that's where Ellie stays, but we didn't really see anywhere else in the house. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, the show is just like, just hits every level. It's very well done. Um, and while Ellie's at the house, Dina comes over. She's brought cookies with her because she's trying to soften the blow with the fact that she didn't tell Ellie or anyone that she actually knows the names. She knows some of the names of the killer of Joel's killers, and she reveals that she saw the jacket that had the WLF, which stands for Washington Liberation Front, which again has a wolf and a triangle.
Wolf.
It's basically wolf. Um, so she remembers that from before she got knocked out back in episode 2, but
Mhm.
she didn't want to tell anybody until Ellie was she wanted to tell Ellie first, let Ellie know.
Right.
And I did like the scene because Ellie's upset with her, and she's like, we lost time. We could have been chasing these people. And I thought that Dina, I mean, Isabela Merced's awesome. She's so great. Like, that's
Yeah.
one of the down parts of episode 2 is that we didn't get much of her because she was knocked out for most of the episode because she's such a
Mhm.
great actress and great performer. But
Yeah.
I did like how, Ellie's upset with her and she's like, Dina's like, well, one thing, like if all you
First
know
of all,
about if all you know about someone is where they're going to end up, why don't you let them get there and then let's go find them? Which I thought that made a lot of sense. So
oh,
yeah,
yes, and
she
this
does
is
it.
what I was saying earlier about Ellie, who thinks that she knows everything. While her point was valid
Yeah,
about we lost time, we could have gone after them sooner, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Dina's point of view is more logical. And this is the frustration I have, of course, with Ellie thinking that she knows everything and what have you. And it's like, girl, you need to grow the F up. You are not the end all be all. Like, you have to value the people around you, the resources, and their knowledge. Like, damn,
yeah,
so frustrating.
yeah. I did like how Ellie's upset and Dina says, "Look, I loved him too. Like we had a good relationship also. I mean, we learned that in episode 1 where he's saying like talking about Dina. She's like she says hello to me. She treats me like a person. So um obviously she had a relationship with him as well. Not as much more short lived than Ellie, of course, but they both have an attachment to Joel.
Yeah.
And then we see Ellie. She moves on to talk to Tommy, and basically she goes to Tommy to be like, "Hey, look, here's the information. Let's go do this. Let's go
Mhm.
chase these people down." And Tommy says, "No, we've got to present this to the city council, basically the town's people, to let them know like if
Yeah.
we're gonna do something like this, we've got to do it the right way. We got to run it by Maria. We've got to run it by the council."
Yep.
And Tommy also reveals something that's very important to the episode. He tells uh, Ellie that Joel is buried 10 miles south of town. So, what do you think about the fact that they're burying their dead 10 miles away? What doesn't that seems kind of far to me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I don't know Wyoming terrain well enough to know
yeah. I
if
mean, there's not a ton of
because
people in
they're
Wyoming. Yeah,
well, okay, but also consider how much the town has grown in the 5 years. If they keep expanding, they're gonna have to keep expanding their radius or, what have you. So that's probably it could be part of that, but then also a lot of these people died because they were bitten by the infected. And in the event, let's say that they're not dead and they come back, they
but
I don't know. Maybe just to keep the distance. I don't. I
well,
agree. It is a far
but
distance,
but
but
we
yeah,
saw at the end of episode 2, people were shooting other people who were bitten, right? Shooting them in the head, I would assume.
sure. Oh
Yeah.
no.
So I would think the idea would be they wouldn't allow that to happen. Now, granted, could something like that happen? Of course, but I don't know.
I don't know. Trisha makes an interesting point. They also may not want to call direct attention to their
Yeah,
community as well. And that's fair. I think
that's
that's fair
fair.
because
Yeah.
if they do experience raiders or other factions that we saw in last night's episode, that's cause enough to plan accordingly to keep their dead away from their compound as much as possible. But I don't know, uh, of course. But I do agree. Yes, it's far. But we also live in Houston, Justin. Like everything, everything is far away from each
Oh, I
other.
know.
So
I know.
for us, it's like, all right, this is life.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I live basically 10 miles from where I work, and it takes me
An hour.
45 minutes to an hour, and I drive a car. So,
Yep. Yep. I live 25 miles away from work, and it still takes me over an hour to get to work. Make it make sense.
yeah. Yeah. Not on horseback, in a car.
Not on
Um,
horseback.
yeah. Um, moving on in the episode, we see then Jesse is training with Ellie and holding the punching bag for her. And after she went to Tommy, she now goes to Jesse to tell him about all the information to get him on her side.
Mhm.
We learn that Jesse's now also a member of the council. He's one of the 11 people who will be deciding on if and when they decide to pursue these people in Seattle.
Mhm.
And, you know, again, he gives Jesse gives her some great advice about, hey, whenever you speak in front of the council tomorrow, make sure that you have your thoughts be composed, write down all your thoughts. And she's like, oh, because I'm stupid. And he's like, no, because you're angry, and no one is going to vote for angry. So I thought that was really well said. Again, like the characters in the show, they don't have a ton of lines, but like you feel like these characters. Like
Dropping bars.
we kind of check in with everybody just with like a little scene here or there, and it's like it's powerful stuff that really like the characters aren't like rail thin like they are like with Daredevil Born Again, where we had characters all season that I don't know anything about these characters after 9 episodes. Whereas this show, 3 episodes in, I kind of have a good idea about everyone in the town that we've seen that is of
More or
importance.
less.
So yeah,
More or less. Yeah, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Ellie just she thinks she knows what the other person may be thinking or is trying to say without saying that comment of, "Oh, I got to write everything down because I'm stupid." It's like, "No, because you're angry and no one's going to vote on angry."
yeah,
And that's just dropping straight wisdom. That's helpful, Ellie. Like don't obviously write off whatever people have to say to you. You're feeling some type of way, you're entitled to feel that kind of way, obviously, but that doesn't open up how do I'm trying to say this? It doesn't it's not to your benefit to just not listen to others.
yeah. And then just skipping right ahead to the next thing is we go to the town's hall meeting, and um Ellie reads her letter, and it's very strong. The basic gist of it was, hey, like, let's get justice, not for me or even Joel, but for all of us. And she kind of spins it that way, like, this wasn't just an attack on me or Joel, or it was an attack on all of us. And so, and she explains, like, look, if something happened to you or your loved ones, I would be there for you. And so
Mhm.
she makes her plea, and she finds an unlikely ally during the meeting.
Yeah.
Brittany, what'd you think about the letter, and what'd you think about the person who speaks up for her and takes her side?
So I kind of want to just give a little bit more background
Okay, go
and
for it.
talk about the people that also spoke prior to Ellie and prior to the unexpected support, where one person is just kind of going off about his own thing, right? Farming and this and that, what have you. It doesn't matter. One other girl spoke on how, it's too soon. We lost so many already. Now you want to send 16 of our best and you can't guarantee that they'll come back.
Right.
Like, no, this is not a wise move. Cool. Valid. One other person, and I've seen that actor before, and I just can't place him off the top of my head. But anyway, he spoke about forgiveness, right?
Right.
Forgiving and moving forward, basically. And yeah, there's a lot of people that would take that approach, but that's not always the best choice, if you will. So I kind of have to say all this to lead to the unexpected support for Ellie and I'll get to that in a moment. But for Ellie in reading her letter, and yes, extremely composed. I messaged this to you, Justin, about how, oh my God, we just got Lyanna Mormont to speak again. Like she's speaking in front of the Northern men, the one and only little girl amongst men, and putting everyone to fucking shame for their lack of support for, I can't even remember what it was happening in the time, but she said, like the North remembers, we answered the call and this and that, what have you. And that's the vibe I was getting when she was reading her letter. And I'm like, wow, this girl can put on speeches. Like she, and I say Bella, but Bella can put on speeches. Bella can act their ass off, and I'm here for it. Right? That was such a wonderful moment. I'm going to read a comment that Trista just shared, and you just threw it up. Absolutely love that he gave her support. We can get to that in a second. I thought it was a good way of showing that even though we have different lifestyle choices, it does not mean that we can let be allies in other things. I think I understand what you're trying to say, Trisha. So the support comes from Seth. After listening to the one gentleman talk about forgive and move on, he said, to hell with that. To hell with that. Seth, let's remind everyone, Seth was the one who made a really bigoted comment to Ellie and Dina at the New Year's Eve party when they were kissing and what have you. Joel went and shoved Seth and what have you. And that's kind of, where everything else fell apart. But for Seth to stand up in support of Ellie, to basically say that these people came into our home and took one of ours, and we're just going to let that go. We're not going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I genuinely was surprised. And I think Ellie was extremely surprised as well that, wow, this guy who said something really horrible to me and Dina is actually in support of my cause. Mm-hmm. Like, it caught me off guard, truly. But I love the passion that Seth gave. And if you look at him too, he's also been wounded from the attack. He's walking with a cane.
Right.
And I think that perhaps would have changed perspective of maybe what he once believed to now.
Yeah, and something I want to point out, the fact that like Joel, I mean, I'm not comparing like whose death is more important, right? But like Joel's was different than the people who died from the infected, because Joel, he was on patrol, and then he got, these people basically did a hit on him, right? He wasn't killed like in a battle, where it's not that like that would be
right
better, but it's like that's more explainable. You know what I'm saying? That's more understandable in their world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas these people came into their town, found him and killed him. That was their sole purpose. It wasn't like he got killed by the infected. So there's a difference, and I can understand, like, to me, like that would be a reason to go to battle or to go after these people, because it's not, if you get attacked by the infected, that's just the world you're in, right?
Yeah.
But
it wasn't quick.
Right.
It wasn't quick. It was deliberate, obviously. I mean, Ellie, granted, didn't see the whole start to finish, but you could tell just by the state that Joel was lying in, and how Abby was over him, just beating him with her bare fist. And then the brutality of that broken golf club being shoved into his neck. It's like, okay, this is a whole other level.
Right. And despite Ellie's plea and her letter and her speech, the plan to go to Seattle is rejected by a vote of 8-3. Now, on the council, we only know 3 people, I think, by character name. Do you think those are the 3 people that voted yes to go? Because the no's won 8-3. Do you think that, meaning, do you think Maria, Tommy, and Jesse all voted yes to go?
I'm not entirely sure about Jesse. I mean, I want to believe yes, because he does have a connection with Ellie, as well as one he had with Joel. Tommy, I think, is a given because he did say as much to Ellie. I would be very surprised and disappointed if he voted otherwise. Maria, I think we saw on the inside of the episode that she was persuaded because of the fact that she used to be a judge or a prosecutor seeking justice, right, for those who were wronged. And I think that was the appeal that Ellie really bestowed onto Maria. So I think she would have changed her vote from no to yes. But Jesse, I feel like because he is moving up in the world of Jackson, he's now been put on the council. He's very young. Ellie had made a remark to him, I think in the previous episode, that one day he was going to actually lead Jackson. So there would be a lot at stake for him to risk being in favor of this sort of mission, regardless of his feelings towards Joel and Ellie. So I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced about Jesse.
Yeah, it's not clear. I think Trisha here has a good comment. She's like, I don't.
Oh my God, we're clicking at the same time. Stop it.
You do it. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think Jesse voted for her to go because he had his head real low the entire time. Yeah, I think you're kind of led to believe that. I did like the dig that Dina took at him, calling him Captain Wyoming, almost kind of like a Captain America.
Captain America.
I enjoyed that.
Funny. That's funny.
Yeah, but no, I agree. It's you would think Maria and Tommy voted yes. Not
I mean,
sure about the other characters, but yeah.
When Ellie openly asked him before he left the garage, can I count on your support? And he basically was like, I can't discuss these matters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, that's one way of saying I plead the fifth. Right? So, and usually when one pleads the fifth, it's not usually good.
Yeah. Then we have a scene with Tommy going to meet with Gail at a little league baseball game, and they talk about Ellie, and basically, Gail tells Tommy, like, look, she's a liar. There's only one person that whoever lived that she didn't lie to all the time. That was obviously Joel. And she basically says that, look, Ellie's like, I've been doing this for 40 years as a psychotherapist or whatever she said. And she's like, some people just can't be saved, and saying that Ellie is one of those people. What'd you take away from this interaction?
I don't know how much she's been drinking. Looked like she had like 3 bottles. She was working on either third or fourth, and just how high she also may be.
Getting lit at the Little League baseball game.
Lit at the Little League game. My goodness. Cheering on number 9, poor thing who fell.
Yeah.
I appreciate trying the sense of normalcy for Jackson. However, the insight that Gail offered about Ellie, I think there's some truth behind it. I think she can probably read Ellie better than Ellie can read herself, especially if you have 40 years plus experience as a psychotherapist. And she calls it like she sees it. I can appreciate that. I'm like-minded. So, and it's true. It's true. Ellie will say whatever she needs to say in order to kind of just be able to do the things that she wants to do. And this kind of feeds right into Ellie's next move.
Yeah. Yeah. Despite the vote, Ellie's going to get, whether it's going to be 16 people or one person, she's going to Seattle. And we find out she's not going alone because Dina wants to join her, of course. And unlike Ellie, Dina actually has a plan. She has a map, and she has it all mapped out. She knows exactly like what to do, what to bring, as far as weaponry and medicine and just supplies. And they're going to take one horse and they're going to pack light. I mean, she's got it all figured out. And you really see that now, the show was all about this duo of Joel and Ellie, and now it's going to be the duo of Ellie and Dina. I hope, I hope that they last, a little bit longer than one more episode, but we'll have to find out about that. But what did you think about this scene, Brittany, where Dina has all the answers and she can kind of help repurpose or direct, I guess, Ellie's blind focus on just killing Abby?
Dina is going to be Ellie's guiding light. I also course, we still don't know a heck of a lot about Dina and just how prepared she is as an individual and such. But I couldn't help but wonder, because she made the comment at that point about getting help from someone, right? And my immediate thought was, well, maybe it's Jesse, right? I wanted to believe that maybe Jesse did vote yes, and therefore he's going to be the one to help with the resources and getting Shimmer, the pony, out. I say the pony, the horse out, and what have you. And so I'm like, well, I wonder how much this came from Dina as opposed to the help that she was getting from the unknown person at the time. So with that being said, then we see Ellie do the exact thing that Dina said, packed exactly the way she said. She carried the rifle that has a scope, what have you. And here comes Dina with Shimmer. And then behind them is Seth. And I'm like, well, didn't see that one coming. I honestly didn't. I was very pleasantly surprised.
I thought he was going to go with them, honestly. And I think he would have if not for the leg injury. Yeah.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. The comment about, I would go, but I got an injury due to friendly fire. And Ellie's like, you sure it was friendly fire? I was like, bitch, seriously? This man is helping you. What is your problem? He openly showed support for you and your mission in front of the council, right? Yes, he openly said a derogatory term in front of everyone at the New Year's Eve dance, but he opened his support. Maybe take a page out of that one guy's book who says forgive and move on, because this man is out here risking everything, being caught by the patrol to help you get out of Jackson so you can go and have your revenge. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. And once out of Jackson, Ellie and Dina's first stop, of course, is to see Joel's grave. And we get that, beautiful scene as like the sun's rising and she's out there at the gravesite. And she put coffee beans on his grave, which I didn't know that's what that was until I watched the after show to see exactly what it was. It wasn't clear to me, like what I was like, is she putting bullets there? It wasn't clear for a second, but
I saw it was coffee beans, but I couldn't understand the reference unless that was something like a callback from season 1 or like a private joke that we have yet to discover. Or because remember how Ellie would tell like those corny dad jokes, like she would just read them out to Joel. I couldn't remember if it was maybe something from that or not. And I have actually failed to do any research to try to get an answer about that. Don't know about you, Justin, but anyway, because she kind of giggled at her, like kind of laughed at the gesture.
Yeah, I think Joel's just a big coffee drinker. That must be it. Like he loves coffee. So I don't remember from season 1 either. So
I don't. I'm
someone in the chat does. Please chime in. We'd love to hear what you have to say about that. But around this time, the episode, we also meet this another group of people who are on a journey, or this religious sect of people, and we learn, or at least I learned from the closed captioning, that they're the Seraphites, and they are led by a father and daughter, very very similar to the Joel and Ellie dynamic in some ways, and they are actually fleeing from this war. And then things go wrong for them. We find out later on that they were killed by some of the wolves. We're not sure if it's Abby's group, but Brittany, what do you think about these characters? To me, they kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting them.
Yeah, for sure, but it makes sense that there would be other factions of people living in this post-apocalyptic world other than just that of Jackson, Wyoming, right? There probably are other places that are habitable. I don't think that's the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Not inhabitable, but the opposite of that. Right. People exist outside of Jackson.
They're out there, yeah.
And for this faction, they seem to be driven by more of a religious sort of take on life, right? The lead guy with his daughter speaks about a prophet. I'm not entirely sure if this is something just from the video game and what have you. But to just showcase that there are other people aside from Fireflies, Wolf, Jackson.
Yeah.
There are people who are probably living more nomadic lives just to survive. And it's also very similar to just today's society where people operate under different ways of life, right? Some are religious, some are just more experienced, some maybe nothing at all, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was good to see that there are other people, if not to drive the idea that Wolf is just a brutal force that takes that completely disregards any other people outside of who they are, what they do, and that's it. Right. I can't imagine that these people would have been a huge threat to Wolf. I mean, yes, they carry hammers to protect themselves. A little girl had asked her father to carry one if it made her feel safe. And she was like, yes, that's what she wants in life, to feel safe. It sadly did not protect them from whatever attack they endured against weapons.
Yeah. And these people, they have scars in their faces, on their cheeks. So I don't know
Yes.
what that's symbolic of, but obviously something to do with their religion, I would assume. But
Mhm.
but then when we see the scene where they were all killed, I mean, obviously we can't see everybody, but the little girl, it looks like she's like kind of bleeding from her nose or definitely from her face. Do you think they were all just like gunned down, or were they beaten? Are we not supposed to? I don't. Maybe we're not supposed to know exactly how they died.
I feel like when people are shot, sometimes depending the wound, it could create blood to come out of other other openings, right? The ears, the mouth, the nose. So it probably just could be that, unless yes, they were beaten and shot, or both.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. So it's, who knows, but it's
yeah,
for that scene to make Dina visibly ill, right? The massacre that she just witnessed. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is like the White Walkers. With I'm making so many connections to Game of Thrones. It's not even funny at this point. But was it the White Walkers or the Wildlings? Probably more the
the wild
Thens.
thing. Oh
The
yeah,
the
gotcha.
Thens
Yeah,
that were more of the cannibals,
right.
right? It that
Had the
was
shaved
just,
heads and everything. Yeah.
yeah, because they also had like the scars across their face as well.
Mhm.
But they were brutal people, and we're seeing brutality, not in the same way, obviously, but nonetheless, brutality is
Yeah,
brutality.
yeah, no doubt. And let's go back to the chat because Trisha has an update. She's been doing some Googling for us. This is the Trisha episode. We appreciate your help,
Yes.
your work, your comments. Brittany, if you want to take away what she has to
Yes.
say about the coffee.
So she Googled it and said it plays a bigger role in the video game
Mhm.
coffee beans because uh, it was a commodity that was basically something that a lot of people missed. So anytime that Joel and Ellie ran across a coffee pot or used, to sell coffee or something like that, he would make a comment about that, how much he had missed it. So yes, it was a luxurious beverage to have after the cordyceps infection. So shout out to Trisha for doing the work for us and sharing it with the rest of us. This is what makes doing our live stream so engaging, so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had actually pulled up something from Screen Rant as well, talking about just the very same thing. So thanks, Trisha.
Yeah, we appreciate the help. Thank you very much. Um, Moving on, I want to talk about one of the probably the biggest scenes in the episode is the tent scene. We
Mhm.
get Adina and Ellie have to get out of the weather. It's raining. It's pouring down. They're for the
Or
night.
Shimmer.
Right. Yeah, I did wonder, like, where's the horse? I guess the horse is just tied up outside, just
Yeah.
getting poured down on.
Yeah.
But we get them in the tent, and they're going to sleep, and you're like, something's gonna happen here. Whether
Yeah.
it's like something romantic, something sexual, something is gonna go down in this scene. Well, you never know. Like, just saying.
Wishful
Um,
thinking.
um, but Dina does bring up the fact she's like, hey, I want to talk about the New Year's Eve kiss, what happened. And she says, like, it's, Dina, it seems like she's kind of playing with Ellie and teasing her, it's like, making her feel like, she's very flirty, but then she also then kind of pushes her away. For example, she asked her about the kiss and she says, like, hey, like, you've kissed girls before, you're gay, I'm not.
Mhm.
So I want you to rate my kiss. What was it? And you can tell like Ellie's kind of like, this is
Don't
bullshit.
wanna have that
Yeah.
conversation.
She rates it as a 6, which obviously Dina's offended by that. But just the whole back and forth, Brittany. What do you think about the whole Dina Ellie dynamic? Is it romantic? Is it just friendly? Is it
It's
I don't
flirting.
know. Yeah,
It's flirting. It's 100% flirting. I mean, this is just laying the groundwork for something that one would hope would develop, right? Because Dina then in turn tells Ellie before the scene cuts away, she wasn't that high,
right.
right? So therefore saying, I was in control. I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
So whether that's just to be playful or if she actually just means it remains to be seen at this point. But that conversation, I didn't really perceive or anticipate the tent scene to be something sexual tension or just I figured it would just kind of be awkward for Ellie because she's in very close proximity to Dina, but she has been all day, right? Dina's been writing
Right.
uh, with Ellie on Shimmer. Ellie has taken the role of Joel, and this is what I was talking about earlier, how she is the one uh, navigating Shimmer, and she carries the rifle the same way that Joel carried his to be on the ready. But to have that conversation, totally flirting, in my personal opinion. But it's awkward. It's painful for Ellie because she clearly feels some type of way towards Dina, and Dina then tells her, "Yeah, I've already gone back to Jesse." Okay, okay, but then it's like, "Yeah, I wasn't that high."
Yeah.
Wink, wink. I just knew it was just going to be an awkward conversation. Like you could just kind of feel that tension. It was
Mhm.
you could, in my opinion, cut it with a knife. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It certainly adds a dynamic to the show that I don't think a lot of shows would have. But
yeah. But based
we'll
on what may happen in next week's episode, I don't know if the love's going to be
yeah.
there for very long.
We're about to talk about that very shortly. But
Yep.
last thing we'll talk about in this episode is Ellie and Dina arrive in Seattle and they notice how kind of beautiful it is and how green it is. I mean, Seattle is known as the Emerald City.
Emerald City.
So, right. So it's obviously there's vegetation everywhere. And but they also see, there's all these soldiers and people with the wolf logo on them. And
Mhm.
Seattle's obviously not a friendly place for Ellie and Dina. And that's where we leave off this episode. What'd you think about how the episode ended?
Again, they got to Seattle rather quickly. I feel for Shimmer, honestly, because horses need taken care of, right? Their hooves, their horseshoes. Couldn't think of the word. So that's a long walk. That's a long walk for Shimmer. Glad she's being taken care of. Yeah, to for the girls to think that, oh, there doesn't seem to be a lot of activity here.
Mm.
There's no way that they could have large numbers here because they don't see that activity. I mean, they're going to be pleasantly shocked, surprised, right? Because you do see that Wolf has grown in numbers. Now, whether that's due to the last 5 years or the last 3 months, it's kind of hard to know. Obviously, I mean, all we know really about Wolf is that they're based in Seattle. That's where Abby and them traveled to after Salt Lake City to get the resources, intel, what have you, travel to Wyoming. But they've got numbers. They've got numbers. They got tanks. I do have a legitimate question
Mhm.
about their tanks. Where the hell are they getting gas from?
Very good question. Yeah. I mean,
Because like
we've seen vehicles in the past in season 1, but, they did a good job explaining that, I think, but
I mean, you kind of just got lucky if
Yeah.
you will. Like you find a vehicle that maybe had some amount of gas and then it would run out. If you got to a gas station, sure, that maybe there was still some gas in their reservoirs or what have you. But like these are big tanks
Yeah.
and they require a lot of gas.
They are gas guzzlers, I would
They're
assume.
ga-
I've
they,
never driven a tank, so I don't know for a
right,
fact, but I
right.
have a decent idea. Yeah.
But again, not knowing how long they've been operating, where they got these tanks from, how long they've been running on like kind of gas. I'm sure someone somewhere has hopefully figured out a way to, utilize fossil fuels or what have you. But I mean, someone's figured out how to make beer, right? That's what Gail has been drinking.
Yeah.
So people are going to have to evolve and
Yeah.
become able to do these things. But I'm like, that literally was my first thought when I saw the tanks. I was like, first, no fucking way. Like, why are there so many tanks? How do they have gas? How can they keep these things up and running? Right? Like,
Life finds a way, right?
Sure, we'll go with that. We'll go with that.
I did want to mention that we don't see Abby in this episode. However, we do see a member of her crew. We see Danny Ramirez's character, Manny.
The Falcon.
Yeah. Joaquin Torres. He is
up on his perch.
Yeah, he's working. There you go. He's working that tower, kind of like a lookout duty. I got to say, Brittany, they showed him a couple times real quickly, and you see from behind, and I'm thinking, are they going to come up behind him and kill him? Or is Abby and Dean? That's what I kind of thought, but obviously that would have been way too fast. But
way too fast, yeah.
But at least we do know that Abby's crew has made it back to Seattle, so we shall see how that plays out. But the look ahead for next week was honestly crazy. There's so much going on. Obviously, Dina and Ellie are in Seattle. They're fighting against a group of infected or many infected.
Lots.
And then at the very end of the teaser for next week, we see Dina pull a gun on Ellie, and she has tears in her eyes. And I think I know why. I think what happens is Dina sees Ellie get bitten by one of the infected, and she thinks, "Oh, I have to kill her." Then Ellie reveals to her that I'm immune, and that's got to me. That's got to be the only explanation. Hopefully, it's not like where Dina turns against her for some weird reason, like, "Well, you and Joel killed somebody that I cared about years ago, and this has been a long con. I've been trying to get you back for years." Hopefully, it's just in the moment Ellie gets bitten. Dina sees it, and that's why Dina decides to try to shoot her. Then Ellie explains to her, like, "No, I'm okay. I'm immune." And then we go on from there.
So very, very plausible.
Yeah.
First and foremost. I also can't help but wonder too, while Ellie was recovering in the hospital, because keep in mind the bandage that was around her stomach, her chest, as after the attack, when she wakes up and she's screaming, there's like some sort of tube that's like being fed into her. And that's also the same area where she had been bitten by that. What did they call that one infected, the one that was like stalking her, if you will.
Stalker, yeah.
The stalker, okay. That's where she had been bitten. She tried to, cut it to make it, look like something else, some other kind of injury, stitched it up, what have you. So I can't help but wonder if the true nature of that injury was discovered. And because Dina went to visit Ellie basically every day in the hospital for 3 months, I can't help but wonder if she was privy to that information and she's known that about Ellie. But then it's like, but then why would she travel to Seattle with her if she was scared of Ellie having been infected and could turn on her? I see it's a real possibility that Ellie gets bitten when they're fighting the infected. But then I also think too, well, maybe there's like an infected coming up behind Ellie that she's not aware of for whatever reason. And
maybe.
And Dina's just scared, she might have to shoot through Ellie in order to kill the infect. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it does make you kind of lean towards the idea that something has happened. Dina has to kill Ellie.
Yeah, I don't think that's what she's going to do, though, because I feel like if it were some kind of big swerve or some twist where that's the case, they wouldn't put that in the teaser, I don't think. That's too big of a thing to to like show us that part of it. So
I don't know. I mean, trailers these days kind of reveal a lot, like a lot of big
yeah,
moments in movies or TV shows just to get the audience to come
but
back.
the
So,
trailer for going into episode 2, which was a look ahead for the entire season, didn't give you any hints that they were going to kill Joel in the next episode,
it's
or did,
fair.
at least not for me. So
No, that's fair. That's fair. But Joel's
we'll
gone,
see.
so who
Yeah,
cares?
we'll see. Yeah, we'll talk about episode 4 next week, but
Yeah.
that about does it for episode 3, I believe. Brittany, is there anything else you want to mention that we didn't get to?
One thing, one
Okay.
nitpicking thing.
Okay.
Earlier, when we were talking about Dina having visited Ellie at the house, she brings cookies for a peace offering.
Yeah.
Where did she get the flour to make the cookies? Because wasn't it flour and grains and such that's how the cordyceps was being transferred, and that's how people were getting sick, because it was in the grain, it was in the bread, it was in all the things that one would use to bake with.
Right.
Where are they getting this flour? I just want to know. We already know that the infected, or not the infected, but like the cordyceps things were in the pipes. Like,
Yeah.
are we going to get an update about that? Are everyone in Jackson going to be infected from within? Also, are we going to see Ellie and Dina return to Jackson at all this season?
Yeah. Will we see someone like Tommy or Jesse or Maria
Somebody.
like come to Seattle? I think that
Yep.
I feel like that's got to happen at some point. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't know that we're seeing them going back to Jackson this season. Yeah, we'll have to find out.
But we will get to see Jeffrey Wright in the next episode.
Yeah, yeah, he
The
is
Watcher
playing.
himself.
Yeah, looks to be very much of a villain type character.
Can't
So
wait.
yeah, we'll see him in the next episode. He's playing a character named Isaac. So
Yep.
looking forward to that.
Very much so.
Okay, so Brittany, now that everyone knows what we thought about episode 3 of season 2 of The Last of Us, episode titled The Path, we want to know what you think about it. What's the best way for people to let us know?
Well, as always, we invite everyone to join us for our live streams, whether it's The Last of Us, The Handmaid's Tale, which will be coming up very soon. And by very soon, I mean this Wednesday. So be sure to join us for that live stream. But you have to, I say have to, I encourage you all to hit that subscribe button. That way you are going to, just be aware of all the content we've got coming at you for this summer. It's a lot, y'all. So subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we're going to go live. And as I mentioned, it'll be this Wednesday to talk about the first 5 episodes of Netflix You. Crazy, crazy season finale so far. I say so far, but anyway. So subscribe, notification bell. Don't forget to hit the like button on this pod if you've enjoyed our review, as well as The Last of Us. And if you're watching the replay, please leave a comment in the comment section about what you thought about episode 3 of season 2, and give us a follow on all of our social media links, description box down below. That's where you can find them, as well as checking out our audio podcast available to you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a follow and give us a 5-star rating. Shout out to Trisha and Yesenia for joining us in today's chat. We really appreciate y'all being here. Trisha, for sure, with her research skills as well. And Yesenia, who says she's planning a trip to Seattle too. Seattle's great. I had a great time when I was there. Thankfully, no cordyceps. So, but yeah, Seattle's awesome. Just be prepared for rainy weather.
Yep, that is true. And I did want to also mention, you mentioned all the stuff we have coming up. One thing we also have coming up this week, probably this weekend, will be Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts will be in theaters this week. I'm seeing it on Thursday night. I know some of the other watchers will be seeing it at some point as well. We'll hopefully be talking about it
Over the
very
weekend.
soon. Yeah, so go see Thunderbolts. We'll be talking about it very soon. And
sure.
So be sure to join us for that. So thanks to Brittany for being here and for letting us know all the information. Always appreciate that.
Yep.
So for Brittany, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.